Hi, it's Jan Beta and we're going to do something relatively uncommon for this channel, and that is to look at a modern PC for a change. This is the Beelink SER8 and we're going to run it through its paces today and see if it's a useful addition to my little lab here. Full disclosure, Beelink sent me this mini PC for review. I don't have any obligations regarding the video, so I can say whatever I want. The only obligation I got is to show it in a video and to put a link to the product in the video description. That's what I did. Apart from that, I'm not getting any further compensation, but I marked this video as a sponsored video because I'm getting this. I'm not doing reviews of things that are not directly connected to what the channel is about usually, but in this case I was looking for a new PC setup, and as you probably noticed, the prices for things have gone up quite considerably because of that hilarious AI hype. I've been using a mini PC, if you will, for my editing stuff, and that's a Mac Mini M1 from 2020, I believe, and it's getting a bit long in the tooth, so I was checking out options, and I think mini PCs are still a relatively affordable option, but I couldn't even afford one of those at the moment, so I was pretty happy to be contacted by Beelink and them sending me this thing, which I think is a mini PC from their kind of the highest tier in their mid-range of mini PCs. They have much more expensive models that are a lot more capable. They also have much cheaper models. They have a good reputation. That's also one of the reasons I agreed to do this. I hope you are not too distracted by this. The next video is going to be about something retro PCE again, but this one I couldn't refuse this offer because I need a new PC of some sort, and this might be it. Okay, so here it is. That's the box it comes in, nicely wrapped in plastic. I'm going to unwrap this before your very eyes, and obviously this is the first time I try this, so let's do that together. I'm going to talk about the specs and things once I have this out of the box. Ah, there it is. Nice. I guess everybody's copying Apple in regards of packaging. This is a nice compact device, as you would expect from a mini PC. It says hello on here. Okay. Small manual, which actually has some instructions in several languages about how to open this up, because this is expandable in several ways, as we're going to see. And pretty chunky power supply, of course. 120 watts, 19 volts, 6.32 amperes. So this is the European version, which is suited for 200 to 240 volts, 50 Hertz or 60 Hertz. It's kind of a laptop power supply because basically that's what these are. Also comes with an HDMI cable, which is a nice touch. And this is wrapped in plastic. And here it is. Pretty nice. It's pretty heavy actually, because it's metal. At least this outer shell is, the whole top part. Some cooling vents on the bottom. This is a plastic part, and it has cooling vents on the back as well. And a lot of connectivity, which is nice. Looks pretty good, feels pretty well built so far. Probably going to remove the Windows sticker. But yeah, this comes in two colors, I believe, space gray and some silvery color. And regarding the specs, this is actually a pretty capable little device. Comes with an AMD Ryzen 7 8745HS processor with a maximum turbo frequency of 4.9 GHz, and it has an integrated AMD Radeon 780M iGPU. The processor is equivalent to an 8845HS, but without the Ryzen AI engine NPU. So it is very capable, but not as capable as the higher spec processor for AI stuff, which I'm not really going to use anyway. It supports dual channel DDR5 5600 MHz RAM, up to 256 gigabytes, which is going to cost a bit of a fortune at the moment, unfortunately. But this variant they sent me, I think, already comes populated with 32 gigabytes of RAM, which is plenty for what I'm going to do with it. And it also has dual M2 PCIe 4.0 SSD slots in here, which allow for up to 8 terabytes of internal storage, which is very nice. I think the version they sent me comes with a 1 terabyte SSD already in there. As we've already seen, it has an air intake on the bottom, and this actually has a pretty clever dust filter in it. At least that's what the marketing says, which makes this last longer without having to clean it all the time. Which is actually quite an issue with these mini PCs, of course, because there are fans in here to cool the processor and the other stuff. And usually these don't have elaborate filter systems just because of the size. This one allegedly has a good filter system. It looked good on paper. We're going to take a look at that. It also has Wi-Fi built in, of course. Wi-Fi 6, Intel AX200 is what it has. Up to 2.4 gigabits per second. It comes with Bluetooth 5.2 built in as well. Dual audio jacks, as we've seen. If you plug something into the front, the back is going to be switched off automatically. I'm not sure if they're doing that in software, probably. But yeah, that's a nice feature. So you can just plug in headphones, and if you have speakers connected to the back, they're just going to turn off automatically. Probably configurable through your audio software. So on the back side, it has a USB 3.2 10 gigabits per second and a USB 2.0 480 megabits per second. This is a 2.5 gigabits per second LAN. The DisplayPort supports DisplayPort 1.4 4K at 120 Hz. That's plenty for my use cases. This is another USB 2.0 480 megabits per second for connecting your slower devices like a keyboard and a mouse, I guess. That's HDMI 2.1 4K resolution at 120 Hz as well. Then there is a USB 4 port that supports up to 40 gigabits per second. This also allows to connect a display, so it's a full-fledged USB 4.0 port here. We have our DC input, and on the front we have another USB Type-C that only supports 10 gigabits per second. That's a data Type-C connector. The USB-A shaped port on here is USB 3.2, 10 gigabits per second. And this little indentation is a little button to clear the CMOS, actually. And this is the power button, quite obviously. It allegedly doesn't run very loud, 32 decibels maximum. Basically, in normal operation, you won't even notice this thing. 32 decibel is still pretty quiet for a PC. Yeah, that's only going to be if you push this a bit and the fan spins up to its maximum speed. Yeah, all in all, pretty nice thing. I think I want to take a look inside before I even try to power this on. I'm actually planning to use this with Linux, I think, but it comes with Windows. That's a nice thing, I guess, for people who like Windows. I don't really. Yeah, the manual doesn't say how to open this. Let's see if there are screws under these feet. Yeah, indeed they are. So you can just poke these little rubber feet, or rubber covers rather. They are not really feet. These are the feet that the device actually sits on. This is just cosmetic, covering the screws. So I'm just going to try to open this up, I guess. I think this is for when, after you have removed the screws, probably, to have it easier to open this up. Yeah, it's not in the manual, but it's not that difficult. And there's also a more in-depth manual, actually, as a PDF for download on the website, as usual these days. So these are threaded screws. Nice. So let's see. Yeah, that's what it's for. Oh, nice. Okay, this is our dust filter, so no dust gets into the machine, actually. And it says, please dust regularly. SE series dust filter, it also says. And please dust regularly. And it's just a fine metal mesh. I think this is steel, probably. And two more screws on the sides here. These are all just small Phillips screws, so you don't need any special screwdriver shenanigans for that. Should probably just lift out. Yeah, it does. More Phillips screws here. These are our SSD slots, and here's our RAM. And I'm not going to take that out, I think, but I want to see what this actually is. Well, it's crucial. Okay. At least it says crucial on the sticker. You never know these days. Do you want to take a look at the SSDs? Yeah. So two more Phillips screws here for the SSD cooling block here. Yeah, these are just very short screws, and then you can lift this out. Looks like a rather no-name SSD. But given the circumstances, that is okay. And there's also our M2 Wi-Fi module that you could replace in case another standard comes along. That is actually pretty neat. So you can replace this module here without even taking it apart any further. Yeah, this M2 SSD, I'm not sure what it is. The chip here says I'm not sure. I'm not the most versed in modern PC components as well, but I think if it was from one of the big manufacturers, it would probably say right on top. So, yeah, it is probably a rather no-name product, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. And build quality seems to be really good, actually. All feels really solid. The metal casing here, yeah, that's definitely aluminum. Okay, let's put it back together and give it a spin. Actually hook it up to something and see if it works. And that's actually pretty cool that you can take the whole dust filter thing out of the machine. You can rinse that if needed and things like that. Yeah, so this is pretty serviceable. I'm not going to take it apart any further, of course, because I don't want to damage it. But underneath you will find a CPU, the mainboard, the small mainboard, and a fan. And this also has a vapor chamber based cooling system, so that makes the fan run slower because vapor chambers are quite effective in transporting heat away from the components that get hot. Going to put these little things here back in. They are a bit sticky on one side, of course. But these are not really needed, as I said. These are just cosmetics. The dimensions are roughly, that's 13.5 centimeters this way, 5.2 inches roughly. Close to the same, 5.3 inches, 13.5 centimeters roughly. And standing up, it is around 4.5 centimeters high, or 2 inches roughly. Of course, there are measurements on the website. I just wanted to confirm in real life. And the pricing is relatively reasonable in my opinion, given the state of things at the moment. That the entry-level model with 16 gigabytes of RAM and a 512 gigabytes SSD is $639 at the moment, and the other model with 32 gigabytes of RAM and 1 terabyte SSD, that's the one I have, is $889. And that includes free shipping a 30-day risk-free trial and a 3-year warranty, which is pretty nice actually. There are no tariffs added for shipping this to the EU or the UK or the US. No import fees. From other countries you might have to pay some import fees because for other countries they're shipping from their China warehouse. This is of course made in China. I didn't mention that before, as most higher-end computer stuff is these days. And you can also get a little dock for it for $119. You can order that together with the machine. So just setting this up with a random keyboard that I had. I actually found this in the trash. A random standard Logitech mouse. And this is actually the first Lips monitor. It's really a Philips that I had in the lab here. But yeah, it's a standard full HD monitor. Just going to use the included HDMI cable to test that. Of course you can set this up a lot neater than I'm just doing, but this is just for testing purposes. Yeah, quite a long cable on the power supply, that's nice. But it doesn't have a cable on the other end, just the plug. And also the plastic wrap that I'm going to remove. Usually on this channel I call this moment of truth, because sometimes the hardware I'm testing is not working correctly because I'm repairing old computers usually. But this time I'm pretty confident this is going to work because it's a brand new device. Let's turn it on. Oh, it has a nice soft white LED on there. Spinning up the fan, which is kind of a pleasant sound. Yeah, and there we are, Beelink logo. This is the first startup. This is going to start up quicker after initial setup and things. And it also has a BIOS, it seems, that you can easily access. Just set, press, delete to enter BIOS or F7 for boot options. And yeah, indeed, it seems to boot into Windows 11, my beloved Windows 11. And yeah, the speakers in the monitor are absolute crap. This is not an indication of the audio quality of this system. Yeah, but it seems to work. We have a Windows setup. I have my mouse pointer here. I'm just going to stick with English because the video is in English. I would set this up to Deutsch because I am German, but for demonstration purposes and because I'm not really planning on using Windows on this in the longer term, I'm just going to go with English. United States, continue in English. Yeah, I'm going to go through the Windows setup because this is not about setting up Windows. This is about using this PC. I'll be back. I'm probably going to install some kind of Linux on here as one of the first steps. Never was a fan of Windows and it's just gotten worse over the years. I am going to install some software on here, I think. Start without my data. Don't allow anything. Yeah, no, don't send optional data. No, I don't want to express myself. I just want to download some proper browser. Let's go with Firefox for a start. My usual first steps in any Windows that I install. I'm going to install some stuff and report back, I guess. The fan noise that this makes is actually noticeable, but it's not unpleasant, it's not loud at all. I'm just going to hold my mic up to it, just so you can get a feeling of what it sounds like. You're not going to get a feeling of the volume of it, of course. It is updating Windows at the moment, so that's going to take some computing power. It doesn't feel warm at all or anything, so yeah. It's not a very loud device, but it is noticeable. Just wanted to point that out. I spent a little bit more time with this thing and it runs really well. Most of the time was dedicated to installing Windows updates and things like that, and I also put Steam on here and installed Cyberpunk 2077, which is, I think, the most advanced game graphics-wise that I own, so that is going to have to do as a demonstration. This updated fine to the latest Windows 11 version, so I suspect that it's a completely legit Windows license that's on here. It didn't complain about anything and just installed the latest updates without any issues. So that's great. Performance seems to be nice, actually. Even the graphics, the integrated graphics, are pretty powerful. I am going to run some benchmarks, and I'm not going to do a screen capture because the capturing software is going to occupy parts of the processor and the graphics card, of course. So I'm going to film the screen here. Please excuse the kind of low production values, but I don't want to change the results of the tests. I installed Cinebench on here, which I think is a pretty representative benchmark software. This performs really nicely as a desktop machine. It has plenty of power for office work and things like that, and should also be powerful enough to run older games, graphics stuff, audio editing, video editing, whatever you throw at it. This has a bit of power. So yeah, pretty nice so far. Let's do the benchmarking. Cinebench 2026, so this is the latest version. I just downloaded this and we're just going to run the GPU test, and I'm probably going to speed the video up a bit here because this takes 10 minutes or so. I'm not going to let you watch the full thing. This basically just renders a picture here to test the GPU speed. And of course this puts some stress on the GPU, and I actually feel some warm air coming from the device, but the fan is still super quiet. Nothing gets overly hot, it seems, so that's nice. Close to 7,000 points. This is the final pass of the test. Performs really well for an integrated GPU, of course. If you have a dedicated graphics card, you are going to get better performance out of the system, and probably could be improved a bit by installing newer AMD drivers, which I didn't do. This is the standard Windows drivers that came with the latest Windows 11. So there's probably room for optimization here. Let's try the CPU test. That's rendering the same thing using the CPU now, I think. Yeah, and it performs like an AMD Ryzen 7, which it is. I'm just going to let this run and report the results, I guess. And the results are in. GPU 6489, CPU multi-thread 3697, single core 595, single thread 418, slightly better than the Ryzen 7 5800X, as you'd expect, basically. Yeah, pretty impressive for a small system like this. And I'm going to show you the real-world performance by just showing you how Cyberpunk 2077 performs on here. Of course, this doesn't compare to a dedicated gaming PC or anything like that, but it's absolutely suitable for some older games and things like that. Yeah, and this is not going to translate too well on camera, probably, because I'm only shooting this in 25 frames, but this looks reasonably smooth. In Full HD. Could totally play this game on this little machine. Yeah, pretty impressive. No complaints for a mini PC. I am going to install a Linux distribution on this though, because I don't really like Windows too much. As I said repeatedly, I suppose. I think this should be a pretty ideal Linux machine because it runs the AMD GPU and AMD architecture, which is very nicely suited to Linux. And I decided I want to try to put a version of Fedora Linux on here, just to try, because it's a relatively up-to-date version of Linux. I'm going with the Fedora 44, I think is what it is, in the KDE Plasma desktop flavor. Yeah. I'm going to install this and show you what it does. Yeah, this is not going to be super exciting, so I'm just going to cut to the chase. Start Fedora Desktop Live. It seems to just work out of the box, and we're just going to install it on the hard drive, I guess. Yeah, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi seems to work. Should just be a matter of installing this in the normal way. I'm not going to go through the installation. I'm going to install it in German this time because this is the system I'm actually going to use on this thing. I want to use the whole SSD. Windows is going to be deleted. I understand. So let's go. Goodbye, Windows. Feels kind of good. But it's a matter of taste, of course. I'm not going to hate on Windows, although I personally hate it. Okay, finished installing. Let's boot it up and see if it boots up. Yay, Fedora. This is the first boot, and we're going to have to do some updates and things like that, but it's not going to take quite as long as with Windows, I guess. So, yeah, seems to run fine, and I'm going to report back when I have this set up. Yeah, looking good. It seems to perform really well in Fedora Linux. And your mileage may vary, of course, because there are so many different Linux distros, but it seems to recognize all the hardware correctly out of the box. I had to do some updates, of course, but yeah, seems to be nice. And it even recognizes the product name SER8. Really cool. So the plan is to use this as my main video editing rig for a while. I'm probably not going to be able to edit this video on this. I'm going to use my Final Cut Pro on my Mac that I'm used to. But in the longer term, I want to use a Linux open source solution for editing my videos and working. This might just be the introduction to that. At least it's going to be my training machine to learn editing with different software than what I'm used to. Yeah, but no complaints here. This runs really quickly and feels super snappy, as you'd expect on a relatively high-spec mini PC like this. And this should be snappier than Windows 11 in many respects. Probably also for gaming in the end, but that's not the primary thing I'm going to use this machine for. Yeah, I think that sums it up pretty much. I don't have any real complaints about this thing. The design is nice. It seems to do what it's supposed to do out of the box. Pricing is super reasonable given that, yeah, everything is getting more expensive regarding PC stuff. So yeah, would I recommend this? I guess so. It does what it's supposed to do. Maybe if you are in the market for a mini PC like this video gave you some hints towards what this thing can do. Hopefully, that was the intention. And the other intention, of course, was that I was able to get this. Yeah, not much more I can say about this. No repairs needed, unlike in many of my other usual videos. I hope you enjoyed this anyway, and if you're not interested in modern PCs, no worries. My usual focus remains on elderly hardware. Thanks Beelink for sending this my way. Thank you for your time. Hope this was informative and somewhat entertaining. Special thanks, as usual, to everybody who supports me on Patreon or on Ko-fi or on the YouTube channel memberships page or elsewhere. The links are in the video description and on my website in case you want to give me some support. That's it for today. I'm Jan Beta. Thanks for watching. See you next time. Bye.